We had time to step back and look at our market. We built things like part of the methods we use, like a market map. We built this market map. We did SWOT analysis. We sort of understood and wrote out strategy narratives, and then we wrote out a one-page strategic plan. And so all of these things Rich helped us through, or I had learnt them earlier and brought them to that.
Hi, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Organization Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. My guest today is Ian ORourke, an EO Sydney member for 9 years who have founded, scaled, and exited several companies and have been involved in the startup industry for the past 25 plus years. He's currently running a company called Adthena, a SaaS business providing search intelligence to major global brands. In today's episode, Ian shared how he was able to navigate and scale his business to hundreds of people and expand to places like the UK and US. He shared lessons learned from his failed expansion to France, as well as tips on how to be an all-rounded entrepreneur. Let's join me in welcoming Ian. Well, welcome to the show, Ian. So great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was a privilege to meet you in person, actually. You've been a long-term EO member. I'm quite new, and I always get excited when I see new faces, and I'm like, oh, he must be new, but no, you've been here for a long time. And it was great to hear your story when we were at the EO Accelerator Day where you were sharing your journey as well. So I wanted to bring you here so that you could share with the rest of the community as well as anyone else that's watching out there. But would you like to share a little bit of how you got started in your journey in business?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a very long and checkered past in business. I'm a serial founder. I've founded 4 businesses now in Australia, the US, and the UK. And I guess the latest business got started in the UK. And so it has become a fairly large SaaS business for major Google advertisers. And prior to that, I guess the genesis of that was I had started a couple of businesses, one in real estate here in Australia, another one in entertainment, so DVD vending machines. Some of the Aussies in the audience will have seen green machines if you're old enough. They would have been littered around Woolworths supermarkets. And then we exited that business by selling it to Hoyts, who were themselves owned by Pacific Equity Partners. So a big PE group that had rolling us up into Hoyts. From that, we've been doing a lot of consumer marketing, and so that was the genesis of moving into Adthena. And Adthena is now operating on 3 continents and is about 150 people. Half of our revenue would come from the US, and the rest would be the rest of the world, which really is the UK and Europe, and then a bit in Australia.
So tell me more about Adthena. Like, what are the services and who are your target audience?
Yep, so Adthena is a competitive intelligence platform. Think of it as a big data analytics platform for typically your large enterprise B2C advertisers. So these would be retail banks, insurance companies, travel companies, automotive companies, retailers of many different descriptions. And so we would have the top ones of those groups in all 3 countries, or all 3 continents, really. So all of the Aussie banks, I think 80% of the Aussie insurance companies, and then think about that in the US context and also in the UK and Europe context.
Explain to me more. It's very technical. So in layman's terms, how does your SaaS product work?
Yeah, so in layman's terms, people spend millions and billions of dollars on paid search advertising. And the only reason they're doing that is because they have a lot of other competitors doing the same. So if you think about, best car insurance, you're looking for car insurance, there's going to be a whole bunch of people competing for those ads in the top space. And they're literally spending tens of millions or hundreds of millions or even billions in some instances to compete for that. And so anything you can do to improve that, say white space in the market that you're missing, say cost savings because your ads aren't performing as well as competitive ones, areas that say competitors are performing really well and you're underperforming, if you want to change that strategically. These are all the sort of insights that we can give you and do give to their marketing teams that drive performance. So we find a lot of these organizations don't actually want to spend less money in search. They want to spend more money, but they just need to find efficient places to spend it. Possibly save a bunch of money for a lot of clients as well, but they then pretty much just take it and spend it in another area to make it go faster.
Okay. So they're using your service directly and they're not using like an agency or something, or your product is part of a tool that an agency uses or anything like that? Or is it just...
It'll be both. It'll be both. Not always both. A lot of larger ones do all of their work in-house, so they don't involve an agency. But then a lot of them do augment that or even hand it over to an agency. So we don't mind either way. We work with all the world's largest agencies. We have a lot of big direct clients as well. Different industries prefer to do it in different ways.
Yeah. And so did you develop this for yourself and then it worked, and then, because most SaaS companies starts like that, right? You build something, it worked, and then you brought it out to the market, or did you kind of build it from scratch, seeing an opportunity out there?
It was sort of born of some bits and bobs that were lying around in a friend's company. And they had a business that was doing arbitrage in search engines, which was a long time ago, and they're making lots of money doing that. But they wanted to commercialize in a different way some of these little tools they were using in-house. And they wanted me to help them do that. And the more I looked at it, the less they knew what they were doing. And it was kind of like having a bunch of car parts lying around on the floor, and they're trying to sell you a wheel, but you don't. And so if you got other parts, which I bought in some other parts and rolled it up into a car, you can sell the car. People like to buy cars. And so that's really where Adthena came from.
Okay. Now, before we talk about expansion, how did you make it work? How did, I heard SaaS industry, it's exciting and you feel like, oh my God, it's like a life-changing software, but then you realize quickly that it's very hard to crack the market or to actually get it working. So would love to hear how you got it, to work and then started to expand globally.
So I guess how we got it to work was, I remember making a decision around, were we going to go after large enterprises or were we going to go after the small businesses in a more of a marketing sign up online? And at the time, my personal experience had been in the US selling enterprise software back in the early days of e-commerce, selling sort of transaction engines and stuff to large companies for large prices. So we made the decision to go very much into the enterprise space. And we sort of seeded the market initially through agencies with a looking back, you might call it a light version or a very inexpensive version of the prototype, through agencies who were trying it for a period of time. And once they got a bit of traction, then we started to refine it a little bit and started to charge them real money, and started to get involved directly with the customers. So, it's been 12 years now. It started in the end of 2012. We were sort of putting it out in market. Early 2013 was the first commercial year. So back then things were quite different. There were less SaaS products. There was less excitement about SaaS. Obviously, it was a thing, but it wasn't everything. And we just had a niche that worked for us. Right? We had one other competitor in the US who promptly got acquired by a big organization. And from my own experience of being acquired by a big organization, it could go one of two ways. They could get excellent global distribution and crush us, or they could flail around inside this big machine and get no traction at all. And so I was only 50% concerned about that.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2020, we actually acquired that competitor out of that. And said we can't make it work. And we bought it for a song, and then they became our customer, and we provided back all the things they needed. So it was a great little full circle for us.
And so when it comes to expansion, because obviously it's a software business, it's online. When you say expand, I mean, is it like, because I'm just understanding the infrastructure. Did you then build an office over there? Like, why did you have to feel like you needed to physically be in a new country versus maybe an Australian-based company and, calling up, emailing international clients?
Yeah, so there's a few sort of stages, I guess, I was going to talk about quickly today. if we start with the founding and why did we, me personally, move to the UK? So there was a few reasons. Once I looked at the markets and the type of organisations we were going to try and get to, if you just did the numbers on the Australian market, it wouldn't stack up. We have a healthy, growing, substantial business here at the moment, but it wouldn't get to a real scale, and you'd work very hard to do that. So one of the things that appealed about the UK was in London alone is a large, really easily accessible market of large advertisers. Even many of the European companies base their marketing operations in London because of the talent they can get there. So you got this large available market. At the time, the pound was really weak. So I'd go to the UK with Aussie dollars to buy things and expand and grow the business. It was actually cheaper to do it there than it was in Oz, which sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. But the other thing, I lived in San Francisco, so I looked at that as well. But the competition for development talent and just talent in general was too tough in San Francisco. If you think about advertising, then outside of New York City, London's the next capital for advertising and marketing. So all of those things kind of were a confluence of why go to London. We found some other benefits in entering that market as well around some of the investment incentives, the R&D tax credits, a number of things that are now in place in Australia that weren't in place back then were already in existence in the UK. And we had chosen to go sort of door-to-door B2B direct sales model for high value prices. That's very easy to do in London. Most of the companies are in London. You jump on the tube, you go across town, you can meet all of them. You can probably do a couple in a day. If you did that in the US, even in Australia to a less extent, but in the US, you'd be flying to all of these different cities and it would cost you a fortune. So it was a good little kickoff place in London.
Gotcha. And so then what were your first few hires? Like what I'm trying to understand. If I was to expand one day, like who do I hire first? How big is the office? Like what does it look like when you're in your mind, you're like, I want to expand there?
So I guess we started with technical people. Predominantly that's what it was. I was kind of acting as the product manager per se. We had the first material hires were a guy who was very technical but has now become our CTO. So he's grown with us over 10 years from a kind of a senior developer into a excellent CTO. And then just maybe about 4 or 5 people in, we got our first salesperson who was the dedicated salesperson who had kind of a network of similar organizations or target customers in the UK. He ran around and got us some early customers. Beyond that, we brought on customer success. So we brought a lady into customer success who sort of founded that team. And then we continued to expand on the development side.
Okay. Gotcha. So while you're in the UK, what's happening in Australia? Who's running it?
That's a good question. So the company was founded legally and technically in the UK. And I used to say to people, the only thing Australian about my company is my accent.
Okay.
But quite quickly in the first year, that wasn't actually true because we'd seeded the market with agencies in the UK, but that had also happened a bit in Australia just through some connections and sort of by happen chance, really. And they got very excited about it. So even though it wasn't a deliberate strategy to expand to Australia, we had customers signing up. So I think probably toward the end of the first year, I hired a one-man band to run the Australian operation. Ironically, a guy from Liverpool who was out here. So there's an English guy. He's still with us as well, and now he runs Asia Pacific. And he's built that to be a big, healthy business. So,
okay. So my next question about you going to France, which is still in Europe. Why did you need it to moved to France, and what happened there? Because you said,
yeah. So maybe should I do it in chronological order a little bit? So it might be better to say, well, going to the US, what did we do, and then going to France, what did we do?
Sure. Yes.
So US expansion from the UK always kind of was part of our strategy. You know, if you're going to be acquired, almost certainly the acquiring company will be US-based tech business. If you're going to be a global business and you don't have the US, then you're going to need to have the US in some form. And our audience is pretty homogenous. So big B2C advertisers in the UK look a lot like big B2C advertisers in the US. So it was a core company strategy. It was addressing a large market. It was trying to approach the market where our likely acquirer would be in the future. It was carefully planned. We sort of did a 10-city survey of all the 10 different cities that would meet all these different needs for us when we're going to enter and put our headquarters there. Remembering this is sort of pre-COVID, so we were all very office-bound. We were either in London or you're in Sydney, and ultimately you're in Austin, Texas, which, you know, and that was it. Or you didn't work for us if you weren't in those offices. Very different now, of course, but and so then we picked Austin for various reasons, flights and time zones and tech talent and cost of living and livability and all of these things. And we transferred some execs out there to sort of take the culture, to take the playbooks, and we put US-specific needs onto our product roadmap. So that there were, you know, if you think about the UK, there's one area called the UK, and in the US, there's 50 states. And they're all, you know, some businesses operate in one state or 5 states or the West or the East or the, you know, and so it's some features had to be put into our product to accommodate that. So we did that. Now, it got fairly, I think we did $1 million of ARR in the first year in the US. And we had a really good proof point, and we brought on an institutional investor from the US who has helped us greatly scale the business into the US market, which is something they had a lot of experience with. So that was helpful. Now, if I contrast that with our France market entry, so you would think France is right next to the UK. It's, you know, we can jump on the Eurostar and we'd be there and meet people. It came about in an opportunistic fashion. So when we acquired our competitor, the company that sold it to us, this big company called Kantar, had a big operation in France. They were a global business. They're quite a multi-billion-dollar business, but they were really strong in France. Sort of just almost a monopoly. And so opportunistically, they pitched us on the idea, and we pitched ourselves on the idea of them taking us into all of their customers as a sort of an add-on, because we were already supplying the data to them for their products, and they had teams been dealing with these customers. So we did a sort of a partnership deal where we would bring the product and we'd put some staff in France, and they would introduce us to all of their customers, and we would go out and win all this business. We got a very good hire. She was, quite experienced in that market. She bought into the strategy, and it just fell apart. The big company did not care at all about introducing us. In fact, there were some junior people in that business that kind of actively blocked us. To the extent that these people wouldn't even come on video when they're doing Zoom calls with them, and you just couldn't get past them. Even with local French team there, we couldn't get past them. But I think ultimately I ended up sending many execs out there to work out what the hell's going on. Why have they not done any introductions? We started winning some customers there of our own volition. So the lady who was running it, she had a support staff as well, and they won business off the back of their network. But I don't even know if we ever won a single deal from that partner. And I remember having lunch in Paris with the CEO of France for that business. And after that, I kind of worked out that in France, as you get to retirement, your pension is 80% of your last salary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for life, right? So here's a guy who'd been with this company for God knows how long and was nearing retirement age. And they had a big part of their business was sort of an old traditional business of sort of cutting out newspaper things and scanning them. And there was this merging digital business that was the big opportunity. But he was just unwilling to rock the boat in any way, right? All he was doing is plodding along until he gets to that, 60, whatever, 5 or whatever it was, and gets, and that was just it. Nothing was ever going to move. Even the vice presidents that reported into him, I think, threw their hands in the air and resigned, because we were just one of many things that I guess had gone that way. Yeah. So sort of my summary was, it was an opportunistic and not a strategic move for us. We thought we'd make some quick money, low overheads. We hired good staff, but those staff got really frustrated quite quickly because they were always sort of the second tier of the strategy. And our product roadmap, that French support was always second to US feature sets. And so in the end, I think after maybe a year of trying, we just shut it down. We were just burning money. We were getting a handful of clients. We can run those clients from the UK still. I think we've got a number of them, but we're not actively pursuing more French clients.
Okay. So so you're still based in the UK and the US now, and the same model right now. I'm just curious, you're thinking really big. You're like going to different countries, and you're kind of like really thinking more boldly. Did you have a business coach? How did you come up with these ideas and boldly make moves such as this?
So didn't have a business coach early on. I had some board members who were quite valuable. And then fast forward after our institutional investor, I ended up with a board of 4 CEOs, including myself, and then 1 investor who had also been operational. So it was a really excellent board to lean on. And then I got an executive coach, and so a CEO and exec team coach, which is something I do a bit of with other founder CEOs myself now. But Rich came in and said, look, who had also built himself a $100 million business. And so that was really important for me, that the person had also done the journey that I was on. And so he would be just sharing experience rather than giving opinions. And he came in every quarter, every month, or every 2 weeks, he and I caught up. And then every quarter we do 2-day offsites. And he helped us put what as he describes it, put in all the processes, methods, and systems such that when you go from 10 million to 50 million, the wheels don't fly off. And that's what he did. Every quarter we're putting in here's a shiny new toy for the exec team to learn and adapt, and then it would trickle down into the rest of the organization. The next quarter they bring another one, we'd learn it and practice it and implement it, and then it would trickle down. And so then a year goes by and you look back and you're like, wow, this thing's really humming and running itself much more efficiently than it was.
Yeah, I love that you've got such a strong team behind you who are really experienced. So have you learned a lot from, your $100 million friend, as well as your own experience, to be able to share with me now as a small business, what would I need to do to not feel like every year is just a little incremental growth, but have you witnessed a time where, you went from this to a huge jump? What kind of shifted and what needed to happen for businesses to shift?
Yeah, so there's probably a few different things, and I don't think there's any one silver bullet for a business. One of the things that is kind of hard, I think, is thinking through the strategy of the business, because when we were little, we're just running fast. There was not enough people to do work. That we never had time to step back. We started stepping back once a quarter for a day. Early days, I had to facilitate those days myself, and it wasn't awesome. But when it did get facilitated, especially by my coach, then we had time to step back and look at our market. We built things like part of the methods we use, like a market map. We built this market map. We did SWOT analysis. We sort of understood and wrote out strategy narratives, and then we wrote out a one-page strategic plan. And so all of these things Rich helped us through, or I had learnt them earlier and brought them to that. Being able to do that and saying, okay, well, we've got 10 clients and we want 50 clients. Where are we going to get them from? And what's it going to cost? Do we have to raise money to do that? Do we need a different product set? These are sort of not the things that you sit down and think about day to day because you're too busy, right? The client's screaming, product's broken, someone's resigned, you're just fighting fires. And so there's a whole scaling up methodology we put in that helps you deal with fires so you can step back and spend time on strategy, helps you think about strategy in a formal and ongoing fashion. Those things helped us in hindsight.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think we're kind of leading to that. We feel like as the business grows with more people, we kind of need to sit together and go, where are we going? Because the more people that are involved in the on the boat, they're like, more confused, and you're a lot more nimble when you are smaller, and so you feel like you have to sit and think and then get everyone on the same page before you can actually move. So thanks for sharing that, and I feel like I'm on the right path in that way. So just talking about your years of experience in business, what were you like as a leader back then, and how do you feel like you've grown now a leader?
Bad, improved. Learning. It's so I had done other leadership roles sort of through university. One of my main sort of formative jobs in my 20s was growing the Asian region out for a software company out of San Francisco. And so I ran around and made a bunch of mistakes on their dollar in terms of hiring and leading and managing. And so I had already a little bit of a base of hiring, firing, difficult conversations, setting objectives, lining people up. But when we got to Adthena, what I found was the leader's role was quite different at each stage. So when you're 5 people, you're all friends. People probably don't even bother to have titles in there. You're not the VP of this or whatever. And then when you get to 15 to 20, I start to feel as a CEO that I wasn't sure that everyone was clear on where we were going and was lined up in the same direction and could articulate the same vision and objectives as everyone else. And I remember my early chairman and investor coming in and sitting with my sort of quasi-exec team and asking them, well, what's Athena's vision? And everyone came up with some ridiculous statement. Oh, sell for 50 million, make Ian rich, add customers, sell this product. It was just all over the shop. And so at that stage, I had to put in some processes like OKRs to start lining people up and measuring the same things together. And then when you got from, say, 20 to 50 people, that was a different journey as well. And so the CEO's role changes as you fill out the exec team with experienced execs, but no one rings the bell for the CEO and goes ding 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 ding, Ian, it's time to become a different CEO. Yes. And then when you go from 50 to 100 and something, the same thing happens again, and the CEO job changes again, and again no one goes ding 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 ding, here you need to change again. So at that level, the coaching was really helpful. At the 20 to 50 people, it was different. I was having to sort of sit in the roles where we didn't have the money to have that leader. So we could have a head of sales, but we couldn't afford a head of marketing. We could have a CTO, but not a, head of customer. Whatever it was, the CEO was sort of moving around, plugging those holes. At 50 people, we pretty much had the money and staff to have the right executive leadership in all the core functions.
And then your role was to manage those executives now. And how are you like as that person? Are you more carefree because you've got, smart wise people that are running the show and less controlling, or how are you like?
So big part of that was setting up early stage the core values of the business, right? And what did we need in people? Who do we want to attract? How did we want them to behave? It sounds all kind of vague and ambiguous as to how you would do it, but you have to be quite deliberate about those core values, because then you bring in the right people and they know how they are supposed to behave. In terms of leading them, I mean, there's a part psychologist, part friend, part boss, and then part coach, helping them grow as individuals in their role, but also bringing in resources. So for example, each of my leaders had an external mentor that I arranged for them. And so they would meet with someone who had done their job or what I was asking them to do 1 or 2 times before successfully. So that was a good forum for them to go and have a cry on their shoulder, and they don't want to come to me or the exec team and put their hand up and go, I haven't a clue what to do. And so that was very helpful for them to learn and grow. And I would check in with the mentors from time to time.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you need coaches for your team as well, not just yourself. So that's a really good note for me. Talk about EO. You've been in it for 9 years. How has it really impacted your life? And for someone new like me, what should I do to really get value from it, or still stay around after 9 years?
EO was really good, from time to time, because the founding journey sort of goes like this, right? As I'm sure you're experienced. It doesn't just go like that. And so EO was awesome for shoulders to cry on, people to give high fives to. But I think the most profound moment for me in EO, or one of them, was in maybe my first or second forum, where I was everyone's giving their updates and stuff, and I was very new to it all. And I looked around the room and I went, goodness me, everybody else has all the same damn problems I have. I thought I was the only one who'd been singled out for all of these problems, and I'm trudging through the dark and cold in London to work every day, and just the weight of the world, when on your shoulders. And then it was just this amazing experience that everybody else who's founding and running businesses had the same problems, and the problems come and go, and each people have different ways that they've solved them. And the experience share, as soon as I got to that experience share methodology, I'm like, this is for me. And ever since then, that's how I coach people. That's how I set my board up, so that they would be, don't tell us what to do, right? Just share what you're doing and have done in the past as a board member or as a CEO in your own business. Tell us what you did in COVID. Tell us what you did in market expansion. Don't just point a finger at me and tell me to be more excellent.
Yeah. And with EO, in our forum update, it's not just about professional, it's also personal. How do you feel like you've grown as, a person, or as a partner, or a parent?
Well, that I think the essence of EO is that the reason they do the family, friends, and personal and business updates is that those things all meld into one. I mean, your founding journey, right? If things are really bad at work, they're probably going to spill over into home. If home's tough, or family's tough, or personally you're struggling, that's going to spill over into the other areas. So Find EO has been a very supportive group in all of those dimensions, right? And when I said, oh, these people have all the same problems, I meant, the full gamut of problems, health and family and spouse and kids and business and, finances, the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back in your journey now, obviously you started the business because you wanted to be successful, and where you are now, do you feel successful? Do you feel like you've made it? Are you at the point where you're like, now I know why I exist in this world, and I want to leave this particular impact in the world?
I don't know that entrepreneurs ever get to the point where they go, right, I've made it. That's it. I don't think I don't see a point where I'm going to go, you know what, everything's done and I'm going to sit around and do nothing. So there was some point through the journey, maybe 5 or 6 years in, where I really consciously thought to myself, you know what, I gotta start enjoying this journey more, not just obsess about the end. Right? I always had this end game, which was like build the company, sell the company, live on an island sort of thing. That was the equation. And when the company didn't sell and, 5 years in, it's not built enough, and 7 years, it's not built enough, you're kind of like, hang on a minute, I need to enjoy this journey. And so I did set about a bit more time with family and friends and experiences and, passions like rock climbing and started to more enjoy all facets. I think EO helped a bit with that as well.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going through that journey as well. I just feel like I'm so much more happier and fulfilled because sometimes when you're just so focused on one area, it kind of makes or breaks you, but then you realize that, you're neglecting the most important thing was your family or health. And when you make time for it, even though the business doesn't grow as fast as you want, but when you're happy, that's the whole point of life, right? And so this leads to the last question, like, what do you want the world to remember you for? Like with all the things that you've done and all the time that you're spending with your family, what do you want them to remember you for?
Yeah, it's a tough question, that one. I think broadly speaking, to be well-rounded, right? To have been well-rounded in life, and that means personally, that means family and friends, and that means commercially in business and finance, right? Whereas I've seen certainly people who go in extremes in one or two of those directions, and that's not me, right? And even in business, I'd probably be remembered more for being generally good at many things and excellent at nothing, which is not bad. This is not bad for a founder CEO, right? Because you do have to dip into all the little things.
Yeah, well, I love that. That's definitely my philosophy as well. It's always about work-life balance and everything integrated. So, we've got all that facet. So thank you so much for the opportunity for me to get mentored. I feel like podcast because I get to ask all these questions and you're full of wisdom and all that experience from growing your business. So thank you so much, Ian, for being on the show today.
You're welcome. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, we'll actually to put your details in the description below so everyone can get in contact with you. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.